Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. You are in the right place. Good to see you. Everyone's coming in right now. We're going to introduce ourselves in a moment. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're just going to let everyone come in. Say hello in the chat. Tell us which organization you're from, what role you do, and which town or city you're tuning in from, or country. That would be great. Because then everyone can see everyone else in the chat and what we're doing. So yeah, say hi in the chat and say which organization you're from and which town or city you're calling in from today. Just be really useful to see some of that. Yeah, give people time to type. So we've got Jacob from Copenhagen. Hi, Jacob. Great. It's been a while since we caught up. Sophie from Surfers Against Sewage, based in Cornwall. Very jealous. Sophie, I don't know if Sophie surfs or whatever, but I'm looking into taking it up myself recently. We've got Maisie from Bristol Animal Rescue Centre, Jessica from St. Luke's. Just scrolling down, there's so many of you. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You're in the right place. Today we are looking at Facebook fundraising benchmarks that we did for 2021. Oh my word, 2022 has been so crazy already. It's weird to think back to 2021 already. I don't know how it got to May. So we're gonna crack on because we've got so much to talk about. So welcome, thank you so much for sharing. First of all, for coming on to the webinar live, but also for sharing in the chat who you are and where you're from, both in terms of organization and location. One thing I would say is, as we go through this, we are going to do a panel at the end of this, and we're going to take Q&A. So there is a Q&A feature in Zoom, which makes it much easier for us to ask the questions, because in the chat, if you ask questions in the chat, we will just not be able to see them. So if you can ask the questions using the Q&A feature, that would be great. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get started. And then in about half an hour, we're going to jump to a panel. So we're going to go through the benchmarks first. Then we're going to jump into a panel. I haven't even introduced myself properly yet, but we'll do that as well in a minute. In fact, should we do that to start with? Carla, why don't you introduce yourself, and then I will introduce myself quickly as well. There's Rob popping up.
So I'm Carla Ankiah. I am the Chief Strategy and Impact Officer at Autism Assistance Dogs Ireland. We've been running Facebook challenges for 2 years, and we've been using the Facebook giving tools since beginning of 2019. So really interested. I was really interested to see the results of the benchmark report, and I think some interesting findings in there for everybody.
Yeah, it's great. And I've invited, so everyone, if you don't know who I am, I'm Nick Burne, the CEO and founder of GivePanel. And for a long time, I've been a little bit obsessed with Facebook fundraising, I guess, including Facebook ads to start with, but then fundraising tools when they first came out. And I invited Carla on this because just to give us that extra perspective as well of someone who is working inside a kind of small to medium-sized organization and how they see the world. And Carla has done the Digital Fundraiser of the Year last year as well, Carla.
Yeah, we won an award. I won Professional Fundraiser of the Year. We won Fundraising Team of the Year last year, and we also won an award for digital transformation.
There we go. So you're in good hands, and you're also on the board of PayPal in Ireland, PayPal Giving Fund in Ireland.
Yeah, I'm one of the directors of the PayPal Giving Fund in Ireland.
You have quite the CV now.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. It's been a busy few years.
So can everyone just give me a thumbs up if you can see the screen? Make sure I'm sharing correctly in the chat. If you can give me a thumbs up or a Y. So if you don't have to do them. David Hunt is on it with the emojis. Love it. It's like who knows how to use emojis on shortcuts on Zoom or not? Brilliant. I can see some of the ones you do. If you don't, just use Y. It's absolutely fine. Thanks. So 2021 Facebook fundraising benchmark report. I know we're in 2020. Obviously, we try to get this out as soon as we can, but this is looking back at the whole year of 2021 calendar year. And what we're going to do today is deep dive into the findings. Carl and I are going to kind of discuss it as we go, some of the top findings. You can read this report for free as much as you want afterwards. Thank you to everyone that did submit data and survey things and survey responses and everything that we did to make this report possible. And then we're going to have a panel discussion at the end, not just with Carla and myself, but also David Burns is going to join me. David used to be at Matter Foundation. He's now a product manager at GivePanel. Jill from our head of our customer success, as well as Rachel as well from Versus Arthritis, is going to join us to take your questions and also to do a panel discussion afterwards. So it should be a jam-packed hour. So let's get into it. So the first thing that we want to say, so we're going straight into the results. The first thing to say is I was really pleased that actually Facebook fundraising had grown in 2021 and to be able to put a number on it. Now, in 2020, when we did our fundraising report, we said that we thought Facebook fundraising had grown 70% looking at our analysis. And just after we produced that report, Facebook put out that they'd raised 5 billion and they had actually grown 70% in 2020. So we were very proud of ourselves at GivePanel that our research had been, without knowing what Facebook were going to say, had been accurate. So I'm hoping that the same is here. We don't have Facebook's data point yet, but we think it increased by 50% this year. So that's pretty amazing considering that it increased 70% the year before. And I think just a good thing for us that we know it's kind of going in the right directions. We think it's largely driven by Facebook challenges would be our analysis, not by birthday fundraising, and probably just more nonprofits coming onto the platform as well. And then if you actually drill down into average growth rates of people that responded to the survey, they were wildly different. We did have some nonprofits who actually made less money in 2021 than 2020, but most had made more. And the average of health charities on the platform had grown 383%, which is just phenomenal. I remember, Carla, one year, you guys grow almost 1,000% one year. I think the second year of your Facebook fundraising was just huge. Yeah,
2020 was massive for us. Yeah,
when you started challenges, it was
when we started challenges, because we saw growth in 2019, and then we started challenges. We launched acquisition for the first one in February of 2020, and that year was just phenomenal. And last year was equally as phenomenal.
So some of those health organizations that completed the survey had grown thousands of percent. So they'd obviously come onto Facebook fundraising, turned it on in 2020, done maybe birthday fundraising, and then in 2021 they'd scaled events through Facebook challenges and grown huge. One interesting data point I wanted to pull out of this was just international organizations. In 2020's benchmark report, they weren't really growing at all. Maybe not such a good fit. International development organizations, not such a good fit with peer-to-peer fundraising as, say, a cancer or a health charity. But it's good to see some growth there in international. And my feeling is that's because they've started to take, I mean, Carla, what do you think? They've started maybe to take the platform a little bit more seriously, get involved, and maybe even run some Facebook challenges themselves. I see quite a few international organizations testing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, I definitely think there was definitely more activity by international organizations in terms of running Facebook challenges last year. And there's certainly more of them investing in Facebook challenges, but it's great to see the growth. I mean, across the board, all sectors are growing, which is, it's phenomenal. Like, it's amazing.
Great. So let's deep dive then into challenges first, because we think they're the major growth driver, or that's what we think. So we did in the benchmark report, if you download it, you will see that that we looked at the top 40 challenges on GivePanel, and obviously GivePanel isn't the only platform that does Facebook challenges, but I think we're probably the main one. And so we just looked at what were the top 40, and here's some of the results. So the average challenge fundraising, you'll have to, I'm sorry if Great British pounds aren't your local thing, you're going to have to Google right now. You're going to have to Google. I just Google currency exchanges now. I just put in 181 GBP in euros or whatever, and Google does it for me. Google seems to do everything these days. So 181 was the average. The average challenge raised £653,000. That's the average for the top 40, which is absolutely amazing. And then what we found was that 16 out of the top 40 were actually cancer organizations. So cancer organizations doing clearly, I would say, dominating the space when it comes to challenges. However, in terms of average raise per fundraiser, actually it was very, very different between different organizations. So we had, and different challenges. We had challenges as low as £51 per average fundraiser, all the way up to £755 per active fundraiser. So a huge range there. And I'd always thought that a lot of the kind of average fundraiser values were driven by the type of challenge. So whether it was a burpee challenge or a running challenge or something else, a knitting challenge, that would do it. But actually what we found is that the biggest thing that affects the average raised is actually not the type of challenge, but the cause, the type of organization. And so we found that baby loss and cancer were the highest average raised. I think we can guess why, because people are very, very emotionally connected to those causes in a very deep way. Whilst homelessness was the lowest. Actually, homelessness was the lowest in terms of average raised. Any thoughts there, Carla? I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes an awful lot of sense. And I think, the type of challenge can influence the average raise to a certain degree. But as you say, the cause obviously seems to be the driving factor in terms of the average gift results. And it's obviously the causes that are resonating with the supporters that are getting the results. And I think that just probably highlights, that we need to be careful when we're communicating and putting out the comms on challenges, that we are kind of hitting the right touch points, because it obviously does influence the end result, which is...
Yeah, I think what I see sometimes happening is a cause coming in and taking maybe just general benchmarks and then underperforming, because they obviously can't be expected to raise at the same level. And so obviously the ROI would be less for example, for some types of organization. And if you're a fundraiser, you could do everything right, but you're kind of almost, you can't really change your organization. That's not a strategy, right? You can't change your cause. Your cause is what your cause is. So I do, if you work for a kind of a health or a cancer organization, you're going to be having higher return on investment because you have higher average fundraisers. And if you work for international and homeless in P2P, you might have lower average. And so you have to adjust your ROI. So your expectations have to be adjusted. And you can still make a return on investment, but that might be sort of slightly different depending on your cause. And I think don't expect, look at and benchmark yourself against other similar types of organizations would be maybe a good strategy. Yeah,
I think that's definitely good advice.
Great. So let's go to the dive in a little bit deeper. So running and walking challenges. So 45%, almost half of the top 40 were actually running events challenges. Again, not too surprised at that, I guess. 8 out of those 19 were, or 18 or 19 were 100 miles or 100K challenges. So quite a lot of 100 miles and 100K. Have you done a 100 miles challenge, Carla?
Nope.
You haven't done one yet?
The team wanted to do 100K in May, and I turned around and said, absolutely not, because everyone else is going to be doing 100K in May. So we did 70. We did 70K. No, we generally actually do slightly less just because of the demographic we seem to get. But I'm not surprised that there were quite a lot of 100-mile challenges performing.
They work. They work, right? They
do work.
They're safe because they work, and they get quite a good. They're quite robust at getting a higher average fundraiser, because it sounds impressive 100 miles, and it is impressive 100 miles. In for me, that is
it's hard. I struggled doing the 50.
Yeah,
50 miles was a challenge for me.
But interestingly, what the data found that was non 100 miles running events actually raised 14% more than the average 40. So don't discount non 100 miles running events. So jog 40s and those kind of run 30, those kind of distances actually performed really, really well. So is that your theory then, Carla, that basically, in a way, 100 miles, 100K might be a bit saturated, and so invent some new running distances just to stand out a little bit or something?
Yeah, and I mean, last year we did a 62K in July, a 62K run, jog 62. So we try and sort of stick to the most part what is reliable, and running and walking challenges are pretty reliable, but we tend to play a little bit with the miles. And
62 is 2 times 31, is it basically?
2K a day, but we didn't marketed it at 62K. But I mean there's definitely plenty of options there. I mean, you could do 99 if you wanted, just to stand out, if you thought there was going to be a few 100-mile challenges happening that month.
Okay, and then so step challenges were interesting. Higher average raised per fundraiser. So actually step challenges were 40%, 48% higher than the average. They were also high volume events. So it turns out, you know, I think it makes sense. They're more accessible steps because a lot more people can do steps than perhaps run 100 miles. So and then also dog walks. Dog walks were, so 10% of the top 40 were dog walks. It's definitely a trend that we saw, was this dog walking. Despite the lower average raise, so slightly lower average raise, they actually had, they were the biggest in terms of volumes of fundraisers. So 71% more than average. We might have just lost Carla. So 71% more than average for dog walks. So the thing about dog walks, I guess, is they are lower average rates, but you can get a good ROI because the incentive on a dog walk can be something like a dog bandana and not a t-shirt. And dog bandanas are much cheaper incentive, and they don't have the size complications and things. So there's actually quite a good return on investment for dog walks. It might fit your organization, and we saw some very successful dog walks. So I think, unfortunately, I think we've lost Carla, but she might hopefully pop back in at some point. So I'm going to carry on without my side, without my my fellow presenter, and come back. Can everyone else I'm just going to check because we lost Carla, that everyone else can hear me okay. Give me another thumbs up or a Y in the comments. Yeah, I'm still here. You're still tracking. Great. Okay, let's crack on then. So other fitness events. So we went through running, other fitness events. Surprisingly, only one burpee event. Oh, Carla, you're back.
Sorry, the laptop battery died, and I hope you didn't hear me swear as it died, because I realised afterwards that it stays connected sometimes, even though the screen has gone black. No,
you're fine. You're fine. That's good. At least you're honest. But yeah, I would have actually, like, that would have been quite funny. So we missed out on that one.
I had it plugged in, but hadn't flicked the switch. So apologies.
So I was just moving on to other fitness events. Only one burpee event, only one push-up event, and only one sit-up event made it into the top 40. That was surprising for me. I thought actually that burpees, especially push-ups, I've seen some really interesting push-up events. So like, I don't know why I expect that this year we might see some bigger sort of non-running events because people have kind of moved on to them more. And then interesting squat challenges were definitely a big, so as well as dog walking was a trend, squat challenges were definitely a trend. Again, very high volumes. Anywhere where I think you can take that targeting a bit more niche, like dog walking or squats tend to be a more female audience. I think you can drive higher volumes because your cost per lead is slightly lower because it's more targeted. That's what I'm thinking. Carla, you ran a squat challenge. It didn't go so well, did it?
No, but the timing actually was just really bad. We ran it in March of this year, and we shouldn't have done, because we knew that the market, you know, it would struggle just with the country opening up and things like that. So I definitely try one again, and I think it's probably just something to bear in mind is that, you know, there is sort of a payoff. You go for a challenge that maybe is higher volume, lower average gift, or do you go for a challenge with lower volume, higher average gift? So I think that's, you know,
yeah, right, yeah, that's true, because like what you want ideally is something that is high volume and high average, but it does seem as though you kind of maybe get one or the other.
I think so, and I think, you know, I suppose it just depends on the capacity. I mean, there's definitely advantages for doing lower volume, higher average gift, because you know, your staffing resources would be less, which is great. The flip side of that, you know, are you more beneficial to do higher volume, lower average gift, because you're engaging more people in taking part in the challenge? So that's the big decision, and I think a nice mixture of both, to be honest, and that's what we're trying to do this year, is actually do a mixture of challenges, some that we know are going to be high volume, low average gift, and others that we think are a bit more niche, smaller volume.
And I think, you know, sometimes you also got to think, like, when do you run the challenge as well? So like, I think you mentioned that a little bit, Carla, but for example, like when everyone was locked down, guess where they couldn't go? The gym. So like, that's a perfect time to do a squat challenge because you can do it. You don't need a gym membership, that kind of thing. But as people open up and go back to the gym, and maybe it's summer, the last thing people want to do is be squatting inside. So in summer, it's more about, or spring, it's more about getting people out, doing walks, dog walks, that kind of thing. So, you know, a press up challenge might work better in the winter. that kind of thing. So you just got to think a little bit through like when the timing's right, but also like, you know, there can be other reasons a challenge doesn't work, right? It doesn't just have to be that squats was wrong and the month was wrong. There could be a number of different factors. Could be the Facebook algorithm that month, could be something else, right? Like there's lots of other things that can affect it. Swimming events were incredibly successful in terms of the average. So very, very high average fundraise for swimming events, 416 per fundraiser. So much, much higher than the average. But again, volume, there's less people that kind of want to do the swim. So there's the volume thing. So that's exactly what you were saying, Carla, about the trade-off between volume and seemingly an average fundraiser. And
I would wonder, like in terms of scalability of the smaller kind of events, well, the smaller volume, you know, expectations in terms of scalability. I mean, it's probably easier to scale something that's high volume, low average gift than something that's lower volume.
And I think that's why, to just finish this slide, is the cycling challenge. Only one cycling challenge made it into the top 40. And I think that's the reason it's quite, they tend to be smaller because their cycling challenge is high, you know, a good average gift, but they don't scale as well as, say, a steps challenge. I think you're finding that with your cycling challenge, which is going really well, but it's a smaller group.
It's a smaller group. We kind of put a limit on how many on the ad spend. We knew that, you know, it probably wouldn't scale, so we did a smaller one, but so far it's performing well, which I'm happy about. So it's all good.
Great. And then one thing we really wanted to do is look at we talk about the funnel metrics a lot with our customers who are part of the GivePanel Academy, and we've broken down kind of like the key steps of that funnel and measure every step of the way. And I think it's like, you know, Facebook challenges run well are kind of like a funnel, and they're very measurable. And so we wanted to pull that apart and get a lot of data on this and kind of publish benchmarks around this. So really happy with this slide, but essentially we did see a difference in kind of that health, medical, cancer, hospice type of organization versus other, and there was kind of other being, I guess, homelessness, you know, it might be international, those kind of other ones. And so cost per lead on average around £2.82 in 2021 for the kind of better performing organizations, and then over £5. And there was a massive disparity. So in the data, there was some organizations who were getting leads at like well under £1 or $1 or €1, and quality leads as well that went on to fundraise. And then on the flip side of it, there were some organizations, they tend to be a little bit smaller, where they had a huge cost per lead in 2021. Could have been the iOS 14 issues, but there was some cost per leads which shouldn't have even really been allowed to happen if the ad manager had limited it properly. Like, you shouldn't really be allowing a cost per lead of £13 and that kind of thing, because you should have your bid capped on Facebook ads. So that's kind of skewing the results a little bit. And then in terms of those leads that then join the group, quite steady at between 70 and 80%. Carla, does that sound about right to you? Is that your kind of experience internally?
Yeah, well, as I was saying to you, like the last couple of years, we've had really strange percentage of leads to group, because we've had a bit of a viral effect, and we were seeing kind of in some challenges kind of 110% conversion to the group. But this year now things seem to have kind of stabilized. We're kind of running probably, I think I was actually looking at the spreadsheet earlier, wasn't I? It was between 70 and 80% so conversion, which is what I would expect. So whatever was going on with the viral effect last year, it was nice while it happened. It's obviously not going to continue. Unless...
there were some organizations where more people had joined the group than leads. So someone had invited them, or something had happened where they actually had more people in the group than the leads that they generated, and we actually stripped those out in the data because we didn't really know how to handle them.
Actually, just interestingly, we ran a challenge in we kind of were doing acquisition for a challenge in April, which is our awareness month, and we saw a really high conversion to the group. So that was kind of pushing I think it was about 90%.
Wow, that's really good, yeah.
But then the other months this year, when we've been doing challenges, it's around kind of 75-80%, which I'm happy with. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, very, yeah. And then once people are in the group, it's looking around. There wasn't, as we went further down the funnel, there was actually less difference between the type of organizer, like the metrics. So at the top of the funnel, there's more difference, and then as we get further down the funnel, there's less difference. So registration, once people are in the group, is between 60 and 70%. So that means 3 or 4 people who come into the group are deciding, I'm not ready to, like, you know, I saw the ad, I got into the group, it's interesting, but I don't need the incentive, I don't need to register. But still, like 70%, I think, is a really good registration rate there. And active fundraisers, which really is the metric that we track. This is the metric that, as GivePanel and on our platform, we're working the hardest on, like with new tools. It's really trying to increase this number of active fundraisers inside your groups. And that's sitting at around just under 30% in the data, which sounds about right to me. Is that about
right? Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with kind of those figures. They're kind of what we're seeing in terms of registration conversion and active fundraiser conversion. And then,
really interestingly, 5 charities that responded actually had over 45% of their group fundraise. And it seems that the real kind of secret sauce there is how well they do community management, and specifically if they have a kind of real, like a person at the core of their community who is a really kind of like the face of the community and a real kind of energy giver to the group, and kind of galvanizes that community. That seems to make the difference between people like actually making the fundraising decision. And so that's something that we talk about a lot with our customers, is try and get that community going. And the way you get that community going is by having a really inspirational individual in the middle of that, kind of like a host, like, you know, a TV program needs a host, a really charismatic person on the TV show. It's that kind of thing. And we think that has a really big impact to how many people are engaged in the challenge, and therefore in the fundraising as well, because that person can be the person, if they're in your organization, who can really link people to why fundraising matters. And they can create that content that can be about your cause and what the money's going to do and all those kind of fundraising lovely things, but in a way that really builds in that community. So that's interesting. So there are the benchmarks carrying on, just because we've got a lot of time to get through. Carla, we might need to speed up a little bit. So we're already behind. So Facebook challenges, 4.2 ROI is the average challenge. It did range from 1.3 to 9.6, so a big range there. And it tended to range, like, obviously there's sometimes that challenges don't go very well, and so you get a low ROI. But the big differentiator here is the cost of using agencies or not. And so the great thing about using an agency is you free up your internal resources to go and raise money on doing other projects, but you also you're spending more money on the agency, and so that's calculated in your ROI. And so those organizations that are doing everything in-house tend to have a higher return on investment, and as much as 9.6. And yeah, so cost of average fundraiser, £27 on average. Again, I think a very, very competitive number, that 27. If you can get a fundraiser for 27 and they raise you 100, then you're near on a 4.2 return there. Any thoughts on that, Carla? Should we probably carry on? Is that okay?
Yeah, just keep going. Yeah. There's more good stuff in that report.
That leads us on to resourcing. So resourcing, what was really encouraging to see is that 1 out of every 4 nonprofits that did the survey actually are hiring someone to do their social fundraising, their Facebook fundraising. It did trend that bigger organizations who have more budget hired slightly more, but this is really good to see, right, Carla? This is
I think it's really encouraging to see, and actually I love the fact that 14% of small charities have invested in hiring someone for Facebook fundraising. I didn't expect it to be that high, and I think that's a good number for small charities, a good percentage at this stage. Yeah, agreed.
And then this is percentage of nonprofits that manage activity in-house. So you can see that, like, this, a couple of things surprised me from this. Facebook ads, I expected more Facebook ads to be done in-house. Less than half of the Facebook ads for challenges are being done in-house. And so this is specifically for Facebook challenges. So less than half are being done in-house. And then fundraising pack fulfillment, I expected to be a lot less. I can't believe that almost half of the organizations are actually doing fundraising pack fulfillment in-house. That was quite a surprise to me. And Carla, you're actually one of those organizations who do your fulfillment of your packs in-house, which don't know how you do that, but it's amazing.
We've got good at it, and now we actually utilize a lot of volunteers, interns, kind of Erasmus students and things like that. So in terms of staff time, it's actually very, very minimal. We've found a way to do it without having to use staffing resources, which is brilliant.
Very good. Very, very good. And then group management hours. We were having a discussion about this internally. This is how many on a Facebook challenge, how many hours organizations are putting into group management. So for a group size of under 2K, 23 hours during an 8-week campaign, and above 5K, 41 hours. The general consensus is this is very, very low. For some reason, the data came through here very, very low. It could have been the way we asked the question, or it could just be actually maybe organizations aren't investing enough in community management, and that's where there's an opportunity, is to invest more in the community management side. But I think one key takeaway from this, Carla, is that we were talking about was that it's actually, there are economies of scale here. So even if the numbers are wrong, the concept is that that basically the bigger the group, the more time it takes, but not that much more time.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, as you scale up, there's more efficiency in managing the group, put it that way. I think that's, yeah. Cool.
Let's crack on. Onto Facebook Stewardship. So this is about how we talk to our Facebook fundraisers, how we engage with our Facebook fundraisers. And this didn't surprise me, but I think I just wanted to make the point that there's still a lot more optimization around Facebook challenges to be had. Only 9% of the organizations that we surveyed are actually using SMS in their challenges. Now that could be because GivePanel has not released our SMS tool yet. So like, this is our job to make it easier for you. But good to see that there's still like a channel there that we can use for really increasing our Facebook challenges. We did actually ask about Facebook Messenger, but no one responded about that. So that's still quite a niche thing. We didn't want to kind of put 0% because it would probably be misleading at 0%, but it's a little bit tricky, I think. And so it didn't come up in the data, but encouragingly, perhaps, I mean, Carla, you said, why isn't this not 100%, but 70%, 70% of our organizations are using a post on the Facebook fundraiser page to engage with their fundraiser.
Yeah, I mean, what this tells me is that, you know, there's 40% who responded that have the opportunity to increase the return by using email, and there's 30% out there that, you know, could be posted on Facebook to increase their return, which is really promising. And there's huge opportunity in SMS by the looks of it.
Yeah, I think that SMS is probably the next one to crack. So that's good. And then that leads on to this data point that we found, which is that actually by posting a message on the Facebook fundraiser page during a challenge, you actually reduce you cut in half the number of zero raised per fundraisers. So we looked at Facebook fundraiser pages in a challenge which had not received a post on the page, not a message. The 45% of them was zero raised, which is crazy when you think about it. 45% of your fundraisers who start a fundraiser for your challenge didn't raise anything, but that was been able to cut in half. That came down to 22% with a simple post on a fundraiser page. I mean, that has to be one of the most simple tactics to do. Drop a message on their page, or a couple. We do 2 or 3 sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, if you can halve the number of £0 or €0 fundraisers, I mean, it's a no-brainer. I think that's yeah.
And it's about 50p in what's called mechanical Turk, or human time, to actually do that. So the return on investment is just huge on that one. Much more than 4.2, probably something like 20 or 40 times. Okay, birthday fundraising. We've got to come into land because I want to get the panelists up here and do some Q&A. Birthday fundraising, we actually found that birthday fundraising saw a 12% decrease, 12% decrease in volume on average, and a 13% drop in average raised. Actually, when drilling in and doing a few follow-up calls with customers, what we found is that on the whole, I would say 8 out of 10 organizations it's Facebook birthday fundraising is either level or increased. If it's increased, it's normally to do with them doing challenges. 2 out of 10 organizations have received a very big drop in birthday fundraising. So this average is just an average. So either you're hurting right now in terms of birthday fundraising, your birthday fundraising income is kind of like halved, or it's kind of stable or just a little bit increased if you're doing challenges. So that's just something around there. Any context on that, Carla, you want to add quickly?
I think other than say that, you know, we've seen kind of stability, and we see kind of increases when we're running challenges. So obviously when you're running a Facebook challenge, it is positively impacting the number of birthday fundraisers you're getting, which
we can maybe unpack this in the panel session, but that everyone asked me, like, what's the best way to promote birthday fundraising? Well, the best way to promote birthday fundraising, it turns out, is do a challenge. And I can explain why, but haven't got time right now, so we'll get into that. In-memory fundraising, we're nearly at the end. In-memory fundraising, we found some amazing things around in-memory fundraising. So the first thing we found is that an in-memory Facebook fundraiser raises 6 times more. So just an organic, normal fundraiser, in-memory versus non-in-memory on Facebook, in-memory raises 6 times more, which is incredible.
Amazing.
So Facebook is a really amazing match for in-memory fundraising. Like, it's a really fantastic platform for that. That's why we've released an in-memory tool. Go and check it out. Also, if a Facebook challenge fundraiser is connected to in-memory, it raises double as well. So you've got in-memory fundraisers doing birthdays, you've got in-memory fundraisers doing challenges, and you've just got like your standard in-memory fundraiser. So it's something that we're trying to talk to Facebook about doing more in this area. And like, at the moment, we're the only ones really defining it as a separate thing. At the moment on Facebook, it's just a default. There's not really anything such as in-memory fundraising. So we've created a tool that kind of helps with that. Go and check it out. And then, that was it. Panel discussion. We did it. I thought we had like maybe 5 more minutes to go. So was that okay? Like, so we're going to jump into hopefully some good information there. We want to kind of unpack this a bit. I want to ask the panelists, get some panel discussion going. You can only listen to my voice for so long and data slides. So if I can invite the panelists up, they're going to kind of they've been here all along listening. So hey, secretly hiding. So let me stop sharing my screen. And introduce yourselves, I think, is probably the best case, if we can go around quickly, and then we can jump into some questions.
I'll go first. I am Jill O'Herlihy. I'm head of customer success here at GivePanel. Facebook fundraising is kind of everything to me. My background is in the nonprofit sector, where I worked in Mental Health Ireland and discovered the stewardship possibilities and the value of stewarding through to Facebook fundraisers. I'm going to pass the ball to David.
Hey everyone, so I'm GivePanel's product manager, and before I put on that hat, I was involved with Facebook challenges since they started. So I helped pioneer the first Facebook challenge with Adrian O'Flynn from Black Swans and Tom Hickey from the Mara Foundation. And yep, it's been like just the most brilliant and amazing past 5 years, because I've been part of like huge groups of people who have literally erected new parts of the hospital in which I used to work. So it's been such an inspiring journey, and I'm really, really excited to be here and share a bit more insight into these benchmark reports.
Great. And Rachel, we've left the I was going to say the best till last, but I don't want to upset anyone else. So
I'm Rachel. I'm from Versus Arthritis. I'm digital fundraising officer, I think, or mass marketing officer. Job titles change, but we've been running challenges at Facebook challenges at Versus Arthritis since pretty much the start of the pandemic. So we've done about 7 now, I think, of various different tests. So yeah, very honoured to be on this panel.
And you're not you do quite good birthday fundraising, or back in the day your birthday fundraising was pretty strong as well. As I don't know how it is at the moment, but
it's dropped.
So you're okay. This is good, because we can get into this, because you're one of the ones where it's dropped. Okay, so I mean, I shouldn't be happy about that. It's not good, but it is good for us to glean your insight on some of this. So my first question to the group, and we don't have, like, you can just shout over each other, or I don't know who it's for, but what was like the metric that we just shared, or the one in the benchmark report that surprised you the most? Was there one that kind of stood out for you that was like, wow, that is surprising?
I have one. Well, I'll go first. I have a few actually, but I'll just give one.
Yeah, you're only allowed one.
Yeah. Oh no. Okay. So mine was, and Carla, you mentioned it as well when you were going through the report, was that of the people surveyed, that 31% were still not messaging their challenge fundraisers. We're not popping a post on their Facebook fundraisers walls. And I suppose the reason that surprises me is because from the last year's, from the last benchmark report we did, we discovered that it can increase average raise from up to 23% when you post a message. Now, we've done more testing since then, and we've discovered that posting within a Facebook challenge can uplift your average raised by up to 15%. So we've done more testing that proves that you can raise more by doing it. And it's not, I know that the main objective is to raise more money, but there are also other objectives that lie underneath that. So the engagement piece, the validation piece, the connectivity piece that you need to have with these supporters. So that was a bit of a surprise to me when the functionality is there to post that message, that some aren't doing it. And I know the reasons why, but yeah, I suppose that's what I wanted to dive into is sort of what those reasons are and how we can fix that.
Yeah, that's a good one. What about another one? Let's go to the next.
I've got one that I'm excited to share. I'm actually really excited about this. So it stood out to me as you were going through the presentation, but the cost per active fundraiser is like £27, and then the average raised is £181. So while the ROI might be a 4:1, or there might be other hidden costs, you're directly paying, like, let's say the £27, and you're raising, you know, almost seven times that amount. So you pay 27, you raise almost 7 times that amount. And that's just for, like, that's the average. And then for swimming, you're actually raising 13 times that amount. And the reason that I find this exciting is because this type of fundraising is still in its infancy. So, like, it only kicked off in 2018. I know that it was brought forward massively by the restrictions during the pandemic, but, like, it's only, like, for me, there's new features that are constantly being added. And of course, I see that as a product manager, like, you know, the idea that we'll be bringing in SMS, we're going to be polishing this type of fundraising. Like, when we first started this, we were hacking things together with Google Forms and, like, you know, spreadsheets and no kind of way of visualizing the data. And we're getting better and better. And other social platforms, I think, are going to move into this space. So I just wanted to share that stood out for me.
So. And we're, you know, just to unpack a little bit, at GivePanel, we're laser focused on basically ROI. Like, that's what we obsess about. And that's really the main ones we focus on is how do we help you increase your average raise per fundraiser through things like messaging, but other ideas. And then how do we help you reduce your cost per active fundraiser? And basically, if we can do both, then that stretches the ROI out. If we also help you save time so you can do more yourselves as well, like, that stretches that out even more. So we're trying to stretch your ROI at all times, but then it's a little bit counteracted by, you know, or just like sometimes there's a lockdown, sometimes there's not a lockdown. It seems like it's not, you know, everyone got very excited about the ROIs during COVID. And I don't think we've seen the same ROIs or can expect the same ROIs, even though we're getting really strong ROIs now. It's not quite as crazy. I mean, some customers were getting like 15-1 ROI and stuff like that. It's quite hard to carry that on. What about you, Rachel? What about, like, one thing that surprised you?
I think for me, it was that average raised per challenge, the 653,000. We're ecstatic when we get over 100,000. But that tells me that there's so much potential. Like, for people with arthritis, there's 10 million people in the UK with arthritis. So for us, we've got such a huge potential audience. However, it is very interesting when you say it depends on the cause. So, you know, going up against cancer charities, it's, you know, we do struggle, and I think we can get that mass, we have been finding we can get a mass audience in, but those average gifts are much lower. So that's something exciting to tackle in this coming year. And also, actually following on from Jill's point about putting the messages on the fundraising pages, we are one of those shocking charities that don't do it, because I think there was at some point in 2020 where if you didn't have capacity to do it, it was more important to spend time in the group. So we've essentially spent 2021 focusing on the group atmosphere. We seem to have got that down. I feel honoured to be on a panel with David, because we do talk internally about having someone who is our David equivalent, in terms of, you know, getting that amazing group atmosphere. But posting on fundraising pages has been something that we've cut. We just don't have capacity. We used to have 7 or 8 different people working on challenges. We're now down to 2 or 3. So it is something that we've cut, but very exciting in the research to see that the impact that that can have. So it means that for our next challenges, we can try and pivot. So with that staff time, it is important to be posting, or can we look at volunteers? How can we make that work? Can we work with GivePanel with that posting? So yeah, I think that's really exciting. So if we can get from 100K to get closer to that 600,000, that would be awesome.
Yeah, and I think it's certainly as an arthritis charity and the heritage you have with Facebook fundraising, I think that's totally possible. We interestingly just did in the academy, we did a scale up model of how you scale up challenge, how you actually forecast and scale that up. And there's some tricks there around the way that you can scale ad spend and things. So I think there is, as we go through this, we've been very obsessed about like getting pilots right, but we haven't done much support around scale ups. And I think scale ups could be the new thing in 2022, 23. And I agree about the David Burns effect. It's like the best product that David Burns could actually invent is a cloning thing for David Burns. Because if we could give him to each organization as a group, Facebook group community manager, I think we'd all be doing very well. So yeah, you've got some fame now.
Yeah, no, it's completely undeserved. I think I completely undeserved. I think I'll let you guys all know really quickly. David Burns was actually like 4 or 5 people. Like it was me sharing an account, and I just was like, message everyone off this, guys, and everyone had this David Burns account. So I can't take all the credit, but thank you so much.
I mean, it was just you in luminous leg warmers. So
the short video style as well. Short video style. So yeah, what would David? That's great. Yeah, have a what would David Burns do shortcut. Carla, what about you? Any is there something that surprised you? I know we all kind of went through it, but choose one.
I think for me, I suppose the potential to do more. Like, I mean, we talk a lot about in the report, we're looking at return on investment of challenges, or how much an active fundraiser is costing us. But I think what's going to be really exciting is to see lifetime value of these supporters. It is in its infancy, and I think if we can kind of get a good return on investment now, great. But I mean, if we're stewarding these participants well, I mean, that's amazing. The one piece of data that wasn't in the report, which I'd have loved to have seen, was the opt-in rates.
Yeah, they're very interesting. They're very high. Opt-in rates on like north of 70% on average, just to throw that one in there. But yeah, we didn't include that one. That's interesting. I think just a plug for Julie Roberts at More Strategic. She's doing a project around kind of best next moves with your Facebook challenge participants, like what to do with them after the event. How can we leverage them into more of a relationship? Leverage is a horrible word, isn't it? But how can we build a relationship with them on an ongoing basis? So yeah, that's going on. And I know that probably a lot of you listening to this will be part of that project that Julie's doing. So just a plug, if you want to know more about that, just email your GivePanel contact or me, nick@givepanel.com. So I think we should probably take some questions. I know we've got a couple of more panel questions, but I just feel like there's quite a lot of questions building up, and people will probably have to go at the end of the hour. And I wanted to honor the fact that we said we were going to take questions. And if we've got time, we'll come back to the panel discussion. Is that okay with everyone? Yep. So let me go through. So
loads of questions.
Yeah. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. I'm trying to pick one. Okay, so what is the opportunity you see with SMS when email and Facebook are established on mobile? That's a great question from Ian. David Burns. Can we be quite quick though, David?
Yeah, super quick. 20 to 30% click-through rate on the link to create their fundraising page. So I've asked for this information of some partners. There's high potential there for more fundraisers. We can send an automatic text after they create their page, get a huge click-through rate on it, and deliver more fundraisers for charities.
Yeah, that's great. Brilliant. I think a question that lots of people have. I'll ask it, because then we'll deal with lots of questions in one go, which is about the question about saturation. This is always like a big question, is like, look, Facebook challenges are very successful. They're relatively easy to run. Like, it's not 100% success guarantee or anything, but they're quite easy to run. A lot of organizations are doing them. How do you think about saturation? I'm especially asking, Carla and Rachel, who you know, you must have these conversations internally. How do you think about this idea that the market is saturated?
I think for us, it's very much thinking about who your audience is. We have, throughout the last 2 years, done a lot of testing for people with arthritis. That steps challenge rather than 100 miles is much more accessible to our audiences. We've just in March run, I don't even want to say it because then it will be saturated by next year, but we ran a very successful knitting challenge at a time when, as far as we were aware, there were like 30, 40 odd charities doing walking challenges and physical challenges. And it was perfect for our audience at a time when that knitting challenge market wasn't saturated. So I guess my advice would be to look at who your audience or potential audience is and what works for them. Just because 100 miles works for 60% of the charities or whatever it was in the benchmarking report, it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. We did try a cycling challenge as well last August. It flopped in terms of income as a Facebook challenge, but we did see something in it with our audience. But a Facebook challenge model, it wasn't right for us for a Facebook challenge model. There's something there. But so yeah, I would say look at your audience. Okay.
And Carla, quick thought?
Yeah, I'd kind of echo what Rachel said. I mean, I've been having the conversation as, is the market saturated for a year and a half now? But I mean, you know, it's definitely more competitive. You've got to, you know, it's not as easy as it was in the beginning of lockdown when this was all, you know, this was kind of new and people were looking for something to do. But I mean, you only have to look at the millions of people that are on Facebook to realize that there is plenty of scope and space for a lot of charities to be active kind of in this space. And I think competitiveness is good because it makes us be creative and test and make things more exciting for the people that are participating.
Great. I'm going to ask another question, then I'm going to answer my own version of that as well. So another question similar, which is, our charity hasn't fully embarked on Facebook challenges properly. Do you think now the trend has passed that we have missed the mark? And I would say absolutely not. One of the things about Facebook challenges that you've got to realize is that you're not competing with other charities just that are doing challenges. You've got to understand the market you're in. What is the job to be done? If you don't know jobs to be done theory, we're a little bit obsessed about it at the moment with GivePanel, but go and look up jobs to be done theory. Basically, you're not competing in the industry that you think you're in. And when McDonald's looked at how they could sell more milkshakes, they found out that actually a lot of people in the US were buying milkshakes for breakfast before 8:30 in the morning, and they weren't competing with other milkshakes from Burger King. They were competing with bagels and bananas and other things you might buy from breakfast. Likewise, the newspaper industry, when their numbers were declining, they thought, oh, which other newspaper is taking our circulation? They didn't realize that actually they were in the business of entertaining people on their commute to work, and actually mobile phones were stealing their market share. So we are competing against, you know, travel companies and gyms and fitness things, a much bigger market than just the fundraising market. It's a much bigger market than you realize for challenges. The total addressable market for Facebook challenges is way bigger than what you think it is, which is why I don't think saturation is an issue that should stop you running challenges. Yes, it gives you that you can't have, it's not the same as when David had the market to himself in 2018. It's got a little bit more crowded, but it should certainly not stop you running them. And then I would just be led by the data. So if you're getting the ROI, then why wouldn't you keep running them? And then if the ROI drops below other things in your portfolio, you cut it out, you know. So we just think if the ROI is there, keep running them. So that's some little bit of insight there. Any thoughts about, I'm just trying to have a look. Jill, have you got access to the questions as well? I might need some help.
I do. I'm answering actually some of them. There was someone
okay.
else. Is there a magic button, or is there some magic way to get people to fill out the forms within birthday fundraising? And I've just said yes, there actually is. So what I can do, if anybody wants to find out how to do the best type of stewardship, email me, jill@givepanel.com, and I have a deck that I can send you that shows you the exact way to get the best results from your messaging strategies.
Great. One other question, I don't know if this might answer a few questions, but people asking, like, as more people use Facebook fundraising, are the averages kind of going down? I think what you've got to realize is that Facebook actually have quite a big product team working on this product for them, and they're looking to optimize donations all the time. So they're adding PayPal and they're adding things. They're testing value prompts. They're doing awful lot of work for you, some of it with AI technology that is optimizing Facebook Donate for you all the time in a way that you could never do with your own donation forms or your own fundraising platform, and in a scale that not even most fundraising platforms can't achieve.
And the Facebook groups are improving. They're
Facebook groups,
they're bringing out new features for groups to help us, make the communities better and steward the communities and the groups better.
So what you've got to realize is all the time you're not doing, like you're doing your stuff, Facebook are also improving their platform. And as David said, we're really excited about what might happen on Instagram and other platforms in time as well. These companies have huge amounts of money, huge amount of engineers, and also huge amounts of technology like AI that can be applied to our problems. So I think that's what we're really passionate about. Is that's why we believe you should go and meet your supporters where they already are. That's our mission, is because where they already are is being improved all the time. And so that's kind of like happening for you, and it's just that added value for you without you even really realizing it. And that is propping up the average. So I think the average donation, if you compare it year on year, has gone up a little bit. Same with the average raise. The average raise per fundraiser has gone up huge, but I think that's partly the challenge effect.
Yeah, there's another question in there actually, which you alluded to earlier. I think it might be good to spend a minute or two on it, is the correlation between the increase in birthday fundraisers and challenge fundraisers. So we know that we can't advertise to increase the volume of birthday fundraisers, but challenges definitely help that. That's the key.
I can quickly just explain that, I think very succinctly. How birthday fundraising work is people get a notification in Facebook before their birthday to set up a fundraiser. They click it, it takes them to a field where they type the charity name in. And as soon as they start typing, a list of charity, like a list comes up. And if you come up top in the list, it's because that person's friend has had lots of people donate to your charity. So if I'm the person choosing you as my birthday, if I've already done a fundraiser and all my friends have donated to you as an organization, you're going to be top when I go to the birthday fundraisers. So pretty much if a person has already created a fundraiser for you before they get that birthday fundraiser, you are going to be top of the list. And this is why there's a halo effect to challenges. So the best way of getting birthday fundraising is getting them to create a fundraiser of any kind from their friends and get as many of their friends donating to that fundraiser. That's the best way. And the simplest way I know to generate high volumes of fundraisers is challenges. And so that's the connection. But if you have another way of generating lots of fundraisers, you should use that. And you'll also get a halo effect from birthday fundraising. What doesn't work is like trying to get ads and drive ads directly to birthday fundraisers. That's something that doesn't work as well. Some have made it work at a very small scale, but it doesn't scale and it's very difficult to pull off. And even when you do pull it off, it's low volume. So you really want to go down a different route. I hope that, don't want to spend too much on that. Any other questions that the panel can, I'll get your take on this one. How do you think this cost of living crisis, the increase in inflation, the general macroeconomic environment is going to affect your Facebook fundraising? I think that's a really good question.
We're already seeing that. So in March, we had lots of people commenting saying we're really trying to fundraise, but with the cost of living, with Ukraine in March as well, that's definitely had an impact on people's individual fundraising as much as they were trying. And just at the start, we're currently in acquisition for our June challenge. And even now, just a few days in, there's still a lot of comments from people. What I'm trying to do is to say, we've just done a challenge, just give it a go, just share your fundraiser, you might be surprised. So I'm not sure how much of it is people just fearful of asking their friends and family, so it's more a psychological thing than potentially a
real
reality.
thing. But then that psychological thing ends up being a real thing, and it almost becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Carla, are you seeing anything? That's really interesting feedback. Thank you so much, Rachel. It's brilliant.
Yeah, so when obviously the Ukraine war suddenly hit, we saw a huge drop in fundraising or average gift and the amount that was kind of coming in that way. But we've actually seen it recover in the last 2 months. Definitely May it had recovered, and I wouldn't be too concerned about the economic side of things. I ran the first in-person event that I've ran since pre-COVID, and the average gift was what I would have expected it to be 3 years ago, 2 years ago pre-COVID. So my data that I'm looking at is actually showing stability over the last few weeks, and definitely kind of since kind of the beginning of sort of mid-April, May. So I think the Ukraine situation had more of an impact, especially for us, because we wouldn't be anyway related to supporting refugees or things like that. But we have seen it come back up, and it seems actually quite stable. So I wouldn't be too concerned.
Good. I'm just gonna pause here because it is top of the hour. I do have to go and get my daughter in 5-10 minutes. So if it's okay, has the panel got another 5 minutes? Would that be okay to carry on? I do know that some people do have to go to other meetings and stuff. So please feel free. Don't worry. Just go to your meeting. Thanks for joining us. I just want to take this point to say thank you. And we're going to carry on just answering a few more questions at the end. This is a typical GivePanel webinar where we overrun and then just want to keep answering questions for as long as possible. And I'd do it for another hour if I had the time, but I do unfortunately have to go and pick up my daughter from school. So let's try and get as many questions done in 5 minutes, an extra 5 minutes there, and crack on. So does Jill, do you want to pick another question?
Yes. Sorry, that's I'm just reading one that's a little bit like, where are we? Specific data. So people are looking for specific data on environmental charities or older charities. So a breakdown of that, what that looks like.
I think environmental charities generally don't perform great when it comes to peer-to-peer, because so mainly Facebook is a peer-to-peer fundraising tool, not a direct fundraising tool. Environmental charities tend to have more of a sort of lead generation and then sort of two-step fundraising model. I think there's some innovation there though, but yeah, not much data on environmental charities coming that we managed to glean. So I know, Greenpeace is a customer of ours, and they do some birthday fundraising, but it's not, I think there's all sorts of innovation that could be happening around challenges around, vegan challenges and these kind of things that affect the environment. But yeah, we don't have a lot of data on it because the fit isn't great. Cost of getting someone to start a fundraiser in 2021 was €32. Has that increased since 2020? What does the panel think? Generally speaking, would you say that cost per active fundraiser is going up or down over time? As a guess, we didn't do a kind of over time chart, and I don't think we measured, because Facebook challenges weren't such a big thing in 2020 report. We don't have the data over time. I've got my own feeling on it, but
I know the cost of our t-shirts has gone up, the cost per acquisition has gone up, so just in general up.
And one other question was, do you see cost per lead going up over time? And I think generally speaking, Facebook has struggled with Apple's changes in privacy. It's caused a slightly higher media cost because they are unable to track conversions as well. So we have definitely seen cost per lead go up. I would say generally across the board, and that's not just non-profits, that's e-commerce, everything. And so that then an increased ad cost does push on to cost per active fundraisers. So I would say, then you've got the inflation effect and stuff of suppliers getting more expensive with t-shirts. So I would say it's going up, but still well within the realms of good return on investment. So we're just not as well spoiled as we were a few years ago pre iOS 14 change. But I expect Facebook also to bring in new things that combat that and bring it back down. So if you read what they're doing, we should see that kind of maybe.
And I think we know more now, than what we did 2 years ago. I mean, for any charity that's ran a couple of challenges at this stage, I mean, they can do a better job of, those conversion rates and everything, that goes with it. So, okay, your cost to get the fundraiser might be a little bit higher, but there's plenty of learnings and things that are coming out of every single challenge that happens that can push back on that and counteract that. So I think that's, we're definitely getting better.
Yeah.
There's another question in here, and it's actually come up in my customer conversations as well. Is anybody measuring repeat challenge participants? So people who are coming back time and time again. So like Rachel or Carla, do you see repeat participants? Are you measuring them? How are they coming back in? Is it just from the ads, or what's their route back into you?
So we are seeing some. We've not done any proper analysis on the database, and that is something that I want to do in the next couple of months. But what we actually did for March was we promoted a day before the ads went live to our last year's Facebook group, which I know isn't the normal GivePanel advice, but in terms of getting like a very warm, friendly community, that worked very well. And with the June challenge we've got going now, there's a few names and we're like, oh yeah, they're back. So I'm not sure about scale. I need to look into that. But in terms of ad hoc, a few individuals, yeah, we're definitely seeing people come back, which is lovely, especially when they fundraise again, if it's been a year.
We see people come back all the time, and we do always post in a previous group. I have kind of a rule as to how long we don't ask them to do another challenge. So usually like 4 to 6 months after the group has done a challenge and it's all died down, we'll post telling them about the next one. But we see people come back annually. So we ran the same challenge in March and October last year and the year before, and there was definitely more people that actually repeated those challenges, and actually they all got upset with us when I changed the challenge this March and did a squat challenge and not a 50 miles. But then I ran the 50 miles in April, and I was like, we're moving it to April because it's our awareness month. So we literally were bombarded with emails from people saying, oh, I was really looking forward to this, I've done it last year and I want to do it again, and I don't want to do squats. So yeah, I think it would be interesting to look at the data. I'll definitely look at it, because I actually need to look at it before I do my strategy for next year. So I will share with the GivePanel team and make of it what you will.
Yeah, and I think we need to do better to help you see your repeat fundraisers in GivePanel, and that's something that I know is on our like roadmap. So that's interesting. I've got to go and get my daughter, otherwise my family is going to sack me. So thank you so much to everyone on the panel, and for every organization that helped fill in the data. We had over 126 responses, full responses to the survey. We analyzed over 240 organizations. So this is the largest study of its kind, other than what Facebook data has, which they don't tell us how much data they have, but I'm assuming they've got lots of data on all of us. So really, really pleased. Hope it was helpful to a lot of you. We still have over 100 of you on this webinar, even running 7 minutes late. So thank you so much for listening, and keep in touch, keep on our blogs, on our email list. We just try and put out as much content to help the sector as possible. And yeah, thanks again, Rachel and Carla especially, and to the GivePanel team as well for helping put this all together.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.